Thanks for joining us today here on America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula, America's Medicare Associates, and Retirement Tax Partners with Nolan Baker and Scott Kirshner. 419-794-3030 is the phone number and the website. To find out more about them, reach out there, arhq.com. We've spoken about annuities before here on the show, and we describe them as a way to inject lifetime income into a retirement plan. But Cheryl Moore from wincantel.com says what many people don't understand is that annuities also act as a safeguard against longevity risk.
So this is basically taking the fact that I might live too long or too long for my retirement savings, certainly, and I need a way to hedge that risk. That's what an annuity does. But the money person is probably thinking, well, why would I sell the annuity? Because I can sell them a bond and a stock fund that's going to way outperform that. Well, that might be true, but does it have that insurance feature where it guarantees the paycheck for life? No. And really, that's what the client's communicating, right? I need guarantees. I don't want to run out of money. And that's exactly what an annuity is made for.
Now, I know you've had this conversation numerous times with clients that have come in and you know, they may treat that word, you know, like a four-letter word. But why are annuities so misunderstood?
You know, I think annuities are definitely misunderstood, and I think a lot of financial products can kind of be misunderstood. And, you know, spending 30 years plus in experience of kind of going through this, it's an area where to kind of educate people on the different choices. You know, first, I would say, you know, some financial products in general, just investing in the stock and bond market can be somewhat misunderstood. I'll give you a perfect example. We had a couple that had come to our recent Mancy's dinner event that we had and came into the office for a review. They had what I would refer to as a traditional 60-40 split between stocks and bonds. And they were using an investment advisor. They were paying an investment advisor to manage their portfolio. The investment advisor was then selecting what is called a third-party money manager to then make the diversification between the funds. That third-party money manager was then putting the money into various ETFs and funds that ultimately, at the end of the day, bought stocks and bonds. And I, you know, had talked a little bit to them, the fact of how many different layers of people were involved in that process. And every layer ultimately cost a little bit of money. So when we looked at the 40% that they had in the fixed income bond fund market, they're paying management fees, third-party fees, underlying fund and ETF fees and expenses, you know, for an investment that in the last couple of years, you know, bonds have really been a challenge where they could eliminate those fees and expenses. They could take the money, whether it's an annuity or using like a FDIC-insured bank CD, they could move it over into one of these fixed accounts and eliminate all of those fees and be able to lock in a 4 to 5 to 5.5% interest rate, you know, for a set period of time. And that would dramatically lower the fees and expenses that they had as well. Annuities, when we think about that word as well, that oftentimes refers to going back in the good old days of pensions. Mm-hmm. So in an earlier segment, we had talked about some federal and state employees that are being offered buyout options. In their buyout options, one of the choices that they have is, how do you want to receive your money? Do you want to get a lump sum payment, or would you rather get an annuity payment for the rest of your lifetime, or an annuity payment for the rest of your lifetime and usually your spouse's lifetime? You know, having income that's going to last the rest of your lifetime, I think, can be very powerful. And again, depending upon how an annuity is structured, there are annuities that will offer either lifetime for a set, you know, individual's life. They offer lifetime for a couple. You can get a set number of years that's paid out on an annuity. There's a lot of flexibilities, but these vehicles help address that longevity risk. And one of the biggest risks, I think, of a retiree is outliving their money. And so having some things inside of there that can help them not outlive their money will give them a lot of peace of mind. Again, when we go back and we look at the things that are out there, I would say the challenge is there is some complexity. I had another couple that were in the office recently, and when he lost his dad, the advisor that he went to set him up with a variable annuity. And so the complexity of a variable annuity when you have mortality expense ratios, sub-account fees, you've got rider cost if elected on side of there. And then in his particular situation, he's, forced to take required minimum distributions because it's an inheritance account from his dad. That complexity, he maybe didn't really understand it. We did the annuity review with him and showed him where he could eliminate a lot of those fees and get something that's a little bit more cleaner. There's a lot of industry jargon. Our show, we try to talk about and teaching you how to retire. We try to, break it down, but I get it when you think about things like riders and caps and participation rates and surrender charges, lifetime withdrawal benefits. Those things can be confusing. Is that the experience that you kind of have?
Yeah, absolutely it is. It used to be, I heard more negativity on annuities in the past, several years ago. Someone would come in and say, oh, I don't want anything to do with annuities. I don't want anything to do with annuities, right? And I think it was a complete misunderstanding. I haven't heard as much of that in as of recent, maybe the last 3 to 4 or 5 years. If you look at the definition of annuitize, I mean, it's basically converting money, invested money, into a guaranteed income stream, right? And that's where a lot of people are looking to stay. One of the things that you guys do a really, really great job of is diversification and diversifying. You don't want all of your money in annuities, right? I mean, that's probably a big misunderstanding. I've got 3 or 4 different annuities. Well, what else do you have? Well, that's all I have. Well, that's probably not the best thing, right? I mean, you want to diversify, and that's what you guys do such a great job is it's a piece of the investment pie, but it's not all the pie.
It's like, we talked about, it's a matter of figuring out what tool is most effective to accomplish the outcome that you want to have. I can get a hammer out and I can bang a screw into a wall, but is that the most effective way to do it?
Exactly.
Annuities tend to be good, again, for the piece of the part that you want to have income. You want to have some type of reliable income. That's what they've done for hundreds of years. I had a really good interview that we did when we went out to Yale with a couple of the professors that are out there. And, if you look at the history of annuities, they've been around for hundreds of years that have been using these type of products. So they can, work in the right environment. You just have to understand, again, how the products work. If you have an annuity and you don't know how it works, that can be something that I'm happy to kind of walk you through. The good thing, Scott, about annuities, if you think about, you had said in the past, they were maybe more misunderstood or more talked negative about than today, is a lot of times annuities are tied to interest rates. And so what we have today is we have, one or close to the highest interest rate in 20 years. So the annuities today can be much better than they were in the future. The bottom line is if you have an annuity and you don't understand it, let's talk about it, and I can help you determine what is the pros and cons of whether it makes sense in your situation.
All it takes to get started and have that, that x-ray done, 419-794-3030 is the phone number. If I might be so bold, I think one of the main reasons annuities are so misunderstood is the person relaying that information may not necessarily have a full understanding of it on their own. And so there is some confusion. It may be the only thing that they have access to, but getting a little bit of that clarity, getting a little bit of that education is something the team at America's Retirement Headquarters prides themselves on. And so to continue that education beyond the show here, reach out to them, 419-794-3030, or go to the website, arhq.com.